Hey, what's going on, everyone? Ryan again with rpkcustoms.com. So if you guys have followed my channel for any length of time, you know that I mainly stick towards building replica lightsabers from the original trilogy. I don't really build lightsabers from the prequels or the sequels or anything like that. But a few years ago, I stumbled on Benji from Nerf Herder Customs and Dylan from Dembeck Relics. And they were building what they call the Scrapflex, which is this right here. And I did a video on this a few months back. So if you want to know any more about this saber, you can go watch that video. But I instantly fell in love with this saber when I first saw it. It's just really a cool mashup. It reminds me of the original trilogy, and it's got influences in there of the Force Unleashed video game series with the leather wrap. It's just a really cool piece. I really like this, and ever since I found the Scrap Sabers and the Scrap Saber group on Facebook, I've been wanting to try to make my own version of a Scrap Saber. Not necessarily a Scrap Flex, but a Scrap Saber of some kind. Now, I've been in the hobby for over 20 years now, which means I have an entire bin full of just junk scrap lightsaber parts that I don't really know what to do with. And I've been wanting to build a saber using nothing but scrap pieces that I have in my collection that are just sitting around not doing anything. So that's what I've done with this. And this was originally a Master Replicas Anakin FX saber from way back, in I think these came out in 2005. I don't know if you guys will be able to see, but there's writing on the bottom of this pommel ring, and it says 2005 Master Replicas, 2005 Lucasfilm Ltd. So this started out life as an Anakin saber. This was actually the first saber I ever bought. My first ever job at a restaurant. The first paycheck that I ever got, I bought this Anakin saber. And this was actually I bought it off eBay. It was actually a converted saber. Somebody took all the electronics out and they modified it with a Luxian 3 LED in the base. So you could have a removable blade, which I thought was really cool. But when I was younger, I really wanted the Scrapflex from Empire Strikes Back, Luke's Scrapflex. That was my favorite saber. So I tried to modify this back in the day to try to make it look more like Luke's saber instead of Anakin's. And obviously there's just so many differences. Like you can see all the differences. They're kind of similar, yet very different. So I was never happy with it, and I modified this, and I ruined some of the parts in the process because I was young. I was just a young kid. I didn't really have any kind of experience with machining or anything like that. So I wasn't really happy with the way this turned out, and it's been sitting in a junk drawer for probably, 15 years. But I recently had some time in between projects, so I thought I would try my hand at building a Scrapflex. So the grip section here and the upper shell here was from the Master Replicas saber. The grenade section here is a really old part from the custom saber shop. I think I bought this while I was going to machine school. So I didn't really have a lot of the machining equipment yet to make my own parts. And I stumbled on the custom saber shop, and they were making parts like this. I thought this was really cool. So I bought a couple of these parts and tried to make my own saber. I did. I was never really happy with it. I'm never really happy with a lot of the things I build. I usually build something, rip it apart a couple years later, and then, some of the parts end up in my junk drawer, which is what happened with this. But I modified this. I heavily modified this to be able to fit into this shell. I had to take down some of these nubs on the inside there just so that it would slide up and fit perfectly inside the Scrapflex shroud. The control box, which looks like a Luke Hero control box, This is an old LS6. I think it was like one of the first generations of the LS6 control boxes that Corban came out with. And I got this in a trade probably 6 or 7 years ago. I can't even really remember what I traded this for. But this has been sitting around in a junk drawer, again, for 6 or 7 years. And I didn't really know what to do with it. So I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to use it. I do have a slimmer control box that probably would be more comfortable to hold, because I'm not going to lie, this thing is not very, but that's kind of the thing with sabers for me is, you know, the ones that are really beautiful to look at, they're not really comfortable to hold. And the ones that are comfortable to hold are not really beautiful to look at. They're kind of like motorcycles, you know, you can get a cruiser. Cruisers all pretty much look the same. They're super comfortable to ride, but they're not very stylistic. So that's kind of how I build lightsabers is, you know, I look at the style first and comfort last, really, because I'm not a Jedi. I'm not dueling with these things. These are mainly shelf queens for me. I usually put these on the shelf and just look at them. It's not like it's an actual weapon. So the grips are, again, these are old grips from the custom saber shop. These are the old rubber grips, which I think I have a couple more. Dig around in my lightsaber junk drawer. So these are the old rubber grips from the custom saber shop. The blade holder is actually from the Scrapflex shop. This was a Scrapflex shop Gen 1 blade holder. And it just so happened that it fits inside the Master Replicas pretty snug. I didn't really have to do any modifications to the diameter of the blade holder, but I did have to put this in the lathe and just kind of shorten the bottom up a little bit, just so everything would match up the way it should. Now I lathed or machined a few parts for this. I machined a new. I'm just gonna use this as a blade retention screw. So it's basically a replacement for the red button, or I think the gold button, I think is what they used on the Anakin saber. And then I replaced the glass eye with just something else I machined again. And then I machined an insert for the bottom of the pommel there, and attached a D-ring, because again, I love the original trilogy sabers, and all of the original trilogy sabers have a D-ring. So of course I'm going to add the D-ring. This does have the hole for the cover tech, but I'm just not really a fan of the cover tech. I also had to modify, let me take this off and show you guys how it comes apart. So this threaded section here was also from the custom saber shop. I believe this was an emitter of some sort. And I had to heavily modify this so that I could fit it down into the grip section of the Master Replicas. And then I simply just used grade 8 bolts and bolted it on. I did that because I wanted it to kind of match the grade 8 bolts up here that I used. I wanted to make this saber look as industrial as possible. Industrial and bulky. That's why I used the T-Track grips and the bigger control boxes, because I wanted that bulk. I really like the bulky sabers. I don't know. The original trilogy sabers were kind of bulky. You know, the prequel sabers, they slimmed down quite a bit, but I kind of missed that bulk. And I also made a blade plug. The original blade holder that this came with was just kind of cheap plastic. Over the years of taking this thing apart many times and messing with it, I think the original blade holder broke. So these are just the blade adapter rings that I carry on my website. And I put those over a piece of 7/8 inch blade stock. And then I had this bronze bushing here and just glued that in. So it's nothing fancy, but it does work. Now the blade holder, it does not fit perfectly in this Master Replicas. So you can see that the pin, the brass pin here, is down a little bit, and that's because the hole is a little bit bigger than what this eye is, and the whole blade holder sits down a little bit lower. So what I did was I just wrapped some wire around each brass pin, and I just ran the wire through the bottom pinhole just to make it look a little bit more natural. But yeah, I think that's about it. Now the control box, before I go, I don't know if you guys can hear that. The buttons are clicky. The LS6 control box comes with its own circuit board and button setup. So I just installed that. So this thing is ready to go for an install. But yeah, I just think these scrap sabers are really cool. I had a lot of fun building this. This was probably the most fun I've had building a lightsaber in a long time. Just because, you know, I could play around with it. Nothing had to be perfect. You know, it's not like I was building a replica from one of the movies and everything had to be exactly perfect. And the best part is it didn't cost me anything. Well, anything extra anyway. I basically got a whole saber out of parts from my junk drawer, which is pretty cool. So, I appreciate you watching, guys. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at RPK Customs. You can find me, obviously, on YouTube at RPK Customs. And you can also find my website, rpkcustoms.com. Thanks for watching, guys. May the Force be with you.